really is. Now, the trick is going to say, and we see a lot of this on the social media, you're always paying for sex, just not money. They also going to say it's not tricking if you have it, right? So they're going to use these as a defense, because what the trick wants to do is that they don't want to feel convicted because of what they're doing. They don't want to feel indicted behind what they're doing. So what they try to do is put everybody with them, right? Because of what a lot of men and a lot of people, we're going to use men in this particular example because I'm a man. So a lot of men, they have a guilt about what they're doing. But the problem is they get caught up in a cycle or a strong urge. And it's kind of like impulse behavior to feed lust. And then once that's over, there's a guilt. And then now when you start talking about what they're involved in, to deal with that guilt, what they try to do is try to figure out how wide of a net can I cast to make it seem like everybody's involved in the same behavior as me. Right. And that's really what's going on. So they'll try to say, well, you're always paying for sex, right? Not just money, or it's not tricking if you have it. So let me explain something to you why that's incorrect. If I drive to a woman's house and I have sex with her, I did not pay her money for sex. So let's say I have a girlfriend, or I have a person I'm in a relationship with, or I may just have a person that I'm having sex with, right? And I drive, to the other side of the city because we're going to have sex. Well, I didn't pay that person for sex, right? Or let's say hypothetically, I'm not driving over there just to have sex. Let's say I drive over there and we watch a movie, and at the end of the night, we have sex. So I really went over there to watch a movie, but we ended up having sex at the end of the night. Or I didn't drive over there and pay her money to have sex. Tricking is transactional. People really got to understand that it's transactional. So, when you go to a grocery store, they don't give you food just because, they like you. They give you food at the grocery store because you paid for it, because it's transactional. So when you're doing things that are transactional to have sex, you're tricking, because the only reason you're doing it is because you want to receive sex. You wouldn't do it for any other reason. So I don't go to the grocery store and pay them for oatmeal, right? And they give me a big can of pepper, and that's acceptable. No, because I wanted oatmeal. That's what I paid for. So I don't go to the grocery store and I see oatmeal and I pay for the oatmeal, and they say, well, hold up. And they switch out the oatmeal and give me a big can of pepper. And I say, well, it's cool, because, it doesn't matter what they give me. No, I pay for oatmeal, so I want oatmeal. So when a man is looking to receive sex from a woman for either money or something that they're doing, it's because they're looking to get sex, right? And so they're doing activities to get sex, okay? The next thing, it's not tricking if you have it. Incorrect, right? You don't trick if you don't have it. So what a lot of these rappers did as part of, them being tricks that we talked about before, this desire to try to cast this wide net so I don't feel guilty about it, even though I do have a large amount of guilt over being a trick. So I try to essentially either put everybody in it or make it seem like something's wrong with everybody that's not doing it. Because if I can make it seem like something's wrong with everybody that's not doing it, I feel better around the fact that I'm doing it, because I really don't feel good while I'm doing it. And we're going to kind of get into that. So the person really doesn't feel good that they trick. It doesn't really make them feel good. So then what I'll do is, instead of really me admitting that I don't feel good, I just attack everybody that's doing it. So I say, well, it's not tricking if you have it. Well, you can't trick if you don't have it. So, people taking what these rappers tell them, who many of them are drug addicted tricks. Not only they tricking, they horrendously addicted to some type of substance. And then using that now as a narrative to justify their behavior, because many of them want to be just like the rapper. They want to make a lot of money, abuse a lot of drugs, and trick all day. That's really their aspirational lifestyle. So then they just take what the rapper says and they run with it, right? So tricking is based on intent. It's not just about money. Doing something to directly receive sex is tricking. Doing favors for somebody to directly receive sex is tricking. Why? Because you're only doing it because you want sex. You wouldn't do it if you didn't want sex. So it's transactional, right? So you got to really understand what tricking really is, and then how a lot of people will try to put you in the trick boat with them, because they really are feeling bad about being in that boat, and they don't want to feel like they're in that boat by themselves, and they definitely don't want to be attacked for being in that boat. So one of the ways in which you do it is you make it seem like everybody's doing it, and they're really correct. A lot of people are doing it because you're programmed to be this type of person in this society, right? This is part of social, social programming or behavior modification to make so many people, but especially men, but it's also women doing it too. And it's also not just opposite sex. It's also same sex, believing that this is type of behavior that you should be involved in. Now, another thing the trick will say is that, you don't pay for sex because your time is not worth more than the money it would take to pay for sex. So I heard this the other day where a guy was telling people well, the reason why you're not tricking is because you don't make enough money. So when people disagree with tricking, the first thing out of his mouth is, well, how much money do you make? That works on those people. It doesn't work on me because I'm really too laced in this game. So I know what is driving this person's behavior. So them little type of word games not going to work on me. I'm just a little too laced for that. Because that's like saying I don't snort coke because I can't afford it. So let's say I tell somebody I don't snort cocaine, but they do. And they say, well, the reason why you don't snort cocaine is because you can't afford it. So I say, man, I don't snort coke. Well, how much money do you make? We used to have this t-shirt that people I knew wore back like in the early to mid 90s. And they used to say, a cocaine habit is God's way of telling you got too much money. Because, you know, a lot of people we find they never started doing coke until they started making a certain amount of money. But let me explain something to you. Snorting coke was always in them because a lot of other people make a lot of money. They never snort coke. So a lot of people have addictive personality issues. They have impulse issues. And so then once they can do something in their mind, it means they should do it. Right. And what you got to understand is, what is your identity? So my identity is that I'm not a trick. So I can make $10 million every day. That doesn't mean now that I go trick, because I'm not a trick. Right. Just like I can make $10 million a day doesn't mean I should go snort cocaine. Why? Because I don't do coke. So the money has nothing to do with my identity. So if your identity is that you a trick, or your identity is that I really want to be a bigger trick and the money allows me to become a bigger trick, then what you do is you try to defend it by telling people, well, the reason why you don't trick and you don't pay for sex is because you don't make enough money. So as soon as somebody says, well, I don't trick, I don't pay for sex, and then your response is, well, how much money do you make? As if that's the justification. But see, let me explain something to you. Men that don't even make a lot of money trick, right? Mexicans that do roofs, or Mexicans that, you know, do manual labor, they're buying prostitutes, right? And then they go home to their family after they get done with that prostitute, and they don't make a lot of money. So it has very little to do with how much money a person makes. It has to do with the identity of that person and what particular spirit that they're dealing with. Because those people work all day, make some money, and go spend money on a prostitute before they go home to their family. Why? Because they got to be obedient to that spirit, right? They're in a relationship with a spirit that tells them you got to be obedient to me for me to give you what you say you want. That's how this game works. So you got to understand is that a lot of it is based on your identity. And if your identity is that you don't trick, the money don't have anything to do with it. Because what we're going to talk about a little bit later is that a lot of men are tricking, and they're not doing it because it's a time thing, or because I don't want to waste the time, right, to build a relationship with a woman and have sex. They're tricking because that's something that they're into, right? They have particular sexual desires that they only feel comfortable doing with women that they're involved in transactional relationship with. But see, nobody wants to talk about that, because then what we're going to do is we're going to start unrolling a big can of worms. You know, we're going to start, getting that. I know how you go to the supermarket and you buy that big tube of a dough, you know, that's already been rolled up and seasoned for you. And when you pop that tube of dough out, it come out, but you can't put that tube back in. So you got to use all the dough. That's what they worried about. So they don't want to open up that can of worms, because they know once they get out that we can't put it back in. So what you got to understand is this, and this is just my own personal doctrine. Don't have to be yours, but this is what I come from, and this is kind of how I've been made to really understand the game. Sexual attraction should be mutual. That's the first important thing. Sexual attraction between you and another person needs to be mutual. The way in which I'm conditioned and the way in which my brain is set up, I don't want to have sex with nobody that don't want to have sex with me. I'm just funny like that.